The laughter echoed through the hangar like shrapnel. The air smelled of oil and dust, sunlight cutting through the metal slats as dozens of soldiers turned to watch. In the center of the chaos stood Lieutenant Erin Ward, silent, her jaw locked, her eyes fixed on the man who had just humiliated her in front of the entire base. Major Hale, decorated, arrogant, untouchable, had ripped open her report, tossed the papers to the floor, and said coldly, "This is why women don't lead missions." Every word struck like a bullet. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're rewatching from. I love knowing who is listening. Erin didn't respond. Not yet. She simply bent down, gathered her papers with trembling hands, and left the hangar without a word. Outside, the desert sun burned across the runway, and the low hum of jet engines filled the air. A sound she usually loved, but not today. Today, it sounded like mockery. She walked to the edge of the airstrip and sat on an empty crate, heart pounding. The humiliation wasn't T new. She, D, faced whispers since the day she earned her wings. But Hale's words had cut deeper than all of them combined because they D come from a man she once respected. And worse, the others had laughed. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her quarters felt too small, the silence too heavy. Every sentence he'd said replayed in her head, echoing like a cruel mantra. She could file a report, she thought, or confront him, but neither would change what people believed. So instead, she made a decision. The next morning, she was already on the flight deck before dawn, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp. There was a high-stakes operation planned, one involving a live drone deployment over the border. Hale was leading it. But as she reviewed the mission plan, Erin noticed something no one else had. A critical calibration error, a single misplaced coordinate. If the mission went forward as planned, the drone would strike 10 miles off target, a civilian zone. Her throat tightened. Reporting it would mean confronting Hale again, the man who had mocked her less than a day ago. But not reporting it, that wasn't an option. When she entered the command tent, every head turned. Hale looked up from his desk, already sneering. "Here to rewrite my mission, Lieutenant?" "No, sir," she said calmly. "I'm here to save it." He smirked. "Excuse me?" She walked forward, placed her corrected map on the table. "Your coordinates are off by 10 miles. If you launch as planned, you'll hit a village." The room went silent. Hale's smirk faded. He snatched the file, scanning it, then glared up. "You're questioning my work?" "I'm protecting your men," she said. For a moment, it looked like he'd explode. But before he could respond, a voice came from behind, deep, commanding, cold. "Is that true, Major?" Everyone turned. Standing in the doorway was General Maddox, the base commander. No one had noticed him enter. Hale stammered. "Sir, this is a misunderstanding." Maddox snatched the papers from his hand, his eyes flicking between the two sets of coordinates. His expression hardened. "Lieutenant Ward is correct." The silence was suffocating. Hale's face drained of color. "Major Hale," Maddox said, voice low and dangerous. "You were about to send a drone into friendly territory, and you mocked the one person who noticed." Every soldier in that tent went still. Then, without hesitation, the general turned to Erin. "Lieutenant Ward, as of now, you're assuming command of this mission. Proceed." Hale's jaw fell open. "Sir." "That's an order." What happened next felt like something out of a dream. Erin stood straighter, her pulse steady now. She issued directives with precision and calm authority. Under her command, the operation launched flawlessly. Every movement synchronized, every calculation exact. The drone returned to base 30 minutes later. Its mission complete, no casualties. When the feed ended, the tent erupted in applause, and for the first time, Hale, the man who had humiliated her, lowered his gaze. He stepped forward, slowly, then saluted. It wasn't pride or formality, it was respect. Real, earned respect. Erin returned the salute, her expression unreadable. She thought that would be the end of it. She was wrong. A week later, the general called for a full base assembly. Thousands gathered across the runway under the blazing sun. Erin stood at the edge of the crowd, assuming she was just another face in the ranks. But then Maddox's voice boomed through the speakers. "Leadership," he said, "isn't about titles. It's about courage. And last week, when one officer chose integrity over ego, she saved lives." He turned toward her. Lieutenant Erin Ward, front and center. The crowd parted. She walked forward slowly, her heart thudding. Maddox extended his hand, not a salute, not a medal, but a gesture of acknowledgement that meant far more. And then, as she stood before thousands, every soldier on that runway did the same thing. They dropped to one knee. The same people who had laughed now bowed their heads in respect, because they had finally seen what true command looked like. Quiet, steady, unbreakable. That day, Erin learned something she would carry forever, that humility, backed by truth, can bring even the proudest to their knees. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back. And on that sunlit runway where laughter once echoed, silence finally spoke the loudest. If this story moved you, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Whispered Words, where stories of courage, justice, and redemption find their home. And tell me in the comments where you be watching from. I love hearing your story too.